I'm ready to get started. I know y'all are. I just want to say that we are making it real grassroots up in here. And we are in a church basement where a children's choir is practicing next door. So if you hear any beautiful angelic voices next door, please excuse us on that one. But we're trying to make sure that we keep that noise to a minimum. So thank y'all and welcome again. Let's see. Just to reiterate some of the housekeeping things that we also have posted in our chat box. Just want to let everybody know that this webinar is being recorded and will live on the LGBTQSouth.org website. So if you would like to not have your camera showing during the recording, please make sure you use that stop video button at the bottom little toolbar there. Also, if you scroll a little bit further down that toolbar, there's a chat button. That chat is there for you all to ask any questions, as well as receive any technical difficulty help, excuse me. And Chloe is alive and well in there, so please use her. She's our tech support today. And the other thing I wanted to say is that as you enter or if you speak, please mute yourself when you're not actively speaking so that we can keep down any background noise. All right. Y'all help me out if I missed anything. I think we got all the good housekeeping stuff out the way. All right. And again, my name is Britney Nesbit. I am the Southern Equality Fund Coordinator under this, which is a program that's housed under the Campaign for Southern Equality. And I just want to make sure that I put out there that Southern Equality Fund is a small grassroots grant-making program of ours, and I know that we have a lot of grassroots folks on here. We're giving out micro grants up to $500. My email and things like that are posted on this presentation, and it will be posted on our website as well. So please hit me up so we can get y'all some money because y'all here for fundraising. So yeah, that's just my little piece there. I'll go ahead and let Maya say a little bit.
Hey y'all, I'm Maya. I also work at the Campaign for Southern Equality as the ZEDEC Social Justice Fellow for Community Engagement and Operations. Veronica?
Thanks, Brittany and Maya. My name is Veronica Garcia, and I am here on behalf of GIFT, the Grassroots Institute for Fundraising Training, and we're super excited to be partnering with Campaign for Southern Equality and your entire network to be talking about grassroots fundraising today. Just a quick little bit about GIFT. We have 3 key programming areas. Our first is our training services, training, consulting, and coaching services to support grassroots social justice fundraisers in achieving their grassroots fundraising goals. We also publish a bi-monthly journal called the Grassroots Fundraising Journal, 6 issues a year, that we use to really kind of raise up activists and organizers that are using grassroots fundraising strategies in really creative and innovative ways for success in resourcing their movements. And then finally, we put on a national conference every other year. This year, we'll be hosting Money for Our Movements at the end of July this summer in Atlanta. So those are just kind of our 3 key programming areas. And again, really excited to be here with you all this evening talking about grassroots fundraising.
Awesome. So we see that there are a ton of people joining us today, and we're super excited, and we kind of want to just get a gist of who's in the space with us tonight. So if you're able, if you could go to pollev.com/gift or text GIFT to 22333 and answer one of these questions using A, B, C, or D. Which of the following best describes you? So are you a donor and you support the people and causes that you care about by giving? Are you a fundraiser? Do you support people and causes you believe in by asking folks to contribute? Are you a donor and a fundraiser, or are you not either? So I'm seeing some responses come in. It looks like most of y'all are donors and fundraisers. We'll wait for a little. Oh, awesome. So I see we have some fundraisers. That's cool. So definitely more donors and fundraisers. Oh, a little half and half. Yes, this is very interactive. So our next question that we want to know about, y'all, is which of the following best describes your primary fundraising challenge? So is it super hard for you to ask for money? Are you afraid that folks will say no and you'll be a failure? Do you not have enough knowledge or skills? Do you just need more practice? Or do you love fundraising so much that you run out of people to ask for money? Okay, not a lot of knowledge and skills. Oh, it's so awesome that you are here then. Taking control of your education, that's cool. Yeah, you just need some more time to practice. That's awesome. Those are really great places to be for this webinar. I think we'll have a lot of things that y'all can take from this. And I'll pass it off to Brittany to do a deeper introduction.
All right, thank you. So I just want to talk a little bit more. Of course, my name, like I said, my name is Britney Nesbit. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I currently work for the Campaign for Southern Equality. I want to talk a little bit about kind of my introduction to fundraising and my connection to this work in particular. So I've been doing organizing work for a while, and it's easy for me to talk to people, but it hasn't always been easy for me to ask people for money or even talk about money. Culturally, for me, it's not something that my family does. It's not something that a lot of my friends do. It's just like, we don't touch it. We don't talk about it. But what I have learned is that we need money to fund our movements. Like, so how do we deal with that? I've been doing a lot of work personally with like, okay, how are we handling the money that's coming in and through our hands in a just way? Because we know we need money as a form of economy to help us be able to push this work. And so that's just been a really cool learning edge. I've also been able to gain a lot more skill and experience by just doing it, just going for the ask sometimes, and also being a part of the fundraising planning part, like getting to see the strategy of it and see why we're doing what we're doing. And that's just been like super cool for me. So I'm really excited to be on here and able to share some of my experiences with you all. I also really love pancakes. And laying on the beach, not long walks, but laying on the beach. So yeah, that's just a little bit more about me. So yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Again, I'm Maya, and my background in fundraising is primarily event planning as a primary way to base build. So I really love everything about events. My relationship with money has been pretty strange. I grew up in a low-income family, and I was sent to a school that had a bunch of wealth when I was in like middle school and high school. So a part of my relationship with money was just trying to hide that I didn't have any. So coming into fundraising, it was pretty difficult to stand in that place of vulnerability and notice that I can't do this work without money, and I also can't do it alone. So being comfortable with asking for help in this work as a source of collective liberation. Slide. Oh, also, I love my cat. She lives here with me in Asheville. She's super cute. I love my nephew. His name is Zen, and he's also super cute, if you can't tell. And yeah, I love my work. I love throwing events.
Thanks, Maya and Brittany. A little bit more about myself. I'd like to introduce myself as a fundraiser. So I actually met GIFT, the Grassroots Institute for Fundraising Training, a little over a decade ago. And here's a picture of me when I actually met GIFT. At the time that I met GIFT, I had already been doing community organizing on a wide range of issues and causes. And I really considered myself doing the real work because I was out in the streets, I was doing actions, I was organizing people, I was facilitating meetings, and I thought really pushing for change. And I just kind of took for granted that there was somebody else that was doing the fundraising, that was kind of keeping gas in the tank for all of our activities and movement building. And I ran up against a time when I realized that there was nobody else that was willing and able to do fundraising. And so I came into fundraising. I now today work trying to teach people how to do fundraising. But I say that more often than not, the people that I meet are people who started off in fundraising like myself as the reluctant fundraiser. And so that's how I came into fundraising. I came into fundraising because there was nobody else to do it. And I had to pick up the baton. And so I went through a gift training and it really just completely shifted the way that I thought about fundraising and the role of fundraising in movement building work. So I went through my gift training. And one of the things that we really pride ourselves in at GIFT through our programming is that the same folks that we use the same folks that go through our training, we develop to come back and actually facilitate our trainings. So I was just so transformed by GIFT's framework and fell so in love with the idea of fundraising as a tool of power in our movement building that I was invited to come back and help facilitate GIFT training. So this is a picture of me at a GIFT training that I helped facilitate in 2015 with a bunch of folks that at the time were really at the forefront of Black Lives Matter organizing in communities across the country. And so that was really exciting. Got to meet a lot of really incredible people doing really incredible work all across the country. And then this next picture is of myself with an organization, a community group that I helped start in El Paso, Texas, called the Detained Migrant Solidarity Committee. Again, another effort that I'm super proud of, but another effort that we quickly realized was going to require funds, money, and other types of resources to help us pursue the mission that we were after, which was to end migrant detention in our community. So again, I was able to bring my fundraising skill set and experience into my community organizing work with the Detained Migrant Solidarity Committee. This picture is of me at our Money for Our Movements conference in 2016. Again, just increasingly dedicated to feeling really excited about working with folks to really uncover the power behind grassroots fundraising for movement building. And then finally, this is myself again at another training at the end of last year with a program out of Illinois called the Education Justice Project. And so for me, I've been able to really experience a huge transformation, both in myself as a person and in my organizing work in coming into the fundraiser role. And so again, just really, really recognizing for myself the power behind fundraising, both to impact my vision around movement building, but the way that I'm able to show up and contribute to movement building. So I continue to feel really excited about kind of sharing the grassroots fundraising message with activists and organizers across issues to really just kind of explore how we find the power in that. I'll turn it back over to Britney to guide us through our next section.
All right, thank you. All right, so for this next piece here, what we're really trying to do is not just make this a webinar where we're just talking at you, even though it is a little information heavy. And so another way for us to kind of have some interaction here, allow you to get to talk with some of the folks who are also, you know, in the same place as you, just virtually, is to do this brief exercise where we're going to just ask some questions about money. We have to, yes, we want to raise money, but I think it's really important for us to talk about our relationships with money as part of being, being part of this social justice movement requires us to be. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm just going to give 5 minutes for us to kind of reflect on these questions. And then we're going to go into breakout rooms. So it'll probably be at max 4 people in your breakout rooms. And I'll give you some more information after that. But right now, I just want us to kind of think about this and really dig deep so that when we get into these groups, we can have some cool, rich conversations. So I will just leave it there. Oh, also, just in case there's some folks that may be calling in, what I'll do is read the slide out loud just in case. So the number one question is, what and from whom did you learn about money? How did you learn about it? How did you learn about how to talk about it? And then number two, how do I feel when I ask for money? And number three, how do I feel when I give away money? Those are the three questions. And if you do need them repeated, please feel free to unmute yourself and I can definitely repeat them for you. Okay, so I'm feeling like we may not need the whole 5 minutes. People seem like I can tell from the videos, like, all right, we're good. We've been thinking deeply. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Okay, like aggressive thumbs. I see you. Awesome, awesome. Okay, cool. So now we get into the super fun part. The breakout rooms portion of this, I just love it. I just think it's the coolest thing ever. So a little gray box will come up on your screen and it'll say join breakout 1, 2, 3, or 4. And then you'll click join that one. And while you're in the breakout room, there'll be like a quick transition and you should go into like another screen where everyone else that's in your group will show up. And then throughout the time, we'll say, hey, you should probably move on to the next question, just like we would if we were in an in-person training. We're asking folks to give about 5 minutes per question. So yeah, try to allow for everyone to get a word in if you can, but we do want to make sure that we can try to get to all 3 questions. So there'll be some little timing reminders. You'll also get sent the list of questions, chat it to your group too, just in case you don't remember. And also, if you do need help while you're in the chat box, there'll be another little icon that comes up in the toolbar, and it's a little white box that just says help. It's a white box with a question mark in it, so you can definitely just type in there whatever support you need. Again, Chloe is going to be helping us out with managing that. And Veronica and Maya and myself will be kind of bouncing around to different groups, seeing what conversation is like, just like we would as if we were in person. Just like being there as a facilitator, as a resource. And then just to listen in, because we are not the experts. We're not the only people who know about this work. So I'm super excited to see what comes up as y'all are dialoguing. Yeah, any questions? Anybody before we go into breakout groups? And Chloe also put some information about going into the breakout groups into the chat box here. All right, well, I think we're good. right. People should be arriving or should be back at this moment. We're gonna get our slide up. I feel like we're doing well on time, and I'd really just like to hear a little bit about, like, was there an aha moment during these reflections? If anybody wanted to share about something that came up for them that they never thought about, anything like that. I really want to hear from y'all and what this experience was like.
Well, I'll tell you, in our breakout session, we had Anita, Becky, and Emily Ann. And, you know, Anita and I can see each other. So we already kind of had a feeling about each other. But we didn't know Becky Ann or Emily at the time. And to hear their voices, I'm like, oh, you're younger. Yes, that's what, all these people are younger. I'm like, I'm the old lady, I feel like. But the big thing is in the giving part, you don't realize that it's harder for younger people to do it. And I guess I don't see that with my own kids because, you know, I don't ask them for money anyway. And maybe some of their friends to buy a ticket, but never for a donation like I'm wanting. But so hearing their side, you know, then I step back and I go, but you are that 70% base that can buy a ticket to an event, or you can give your time for an event or whatever, and you can be present. And so I think, you know, giving money, but asking for money, hearing everybody was a grant writer, except I think Anita worked at the university. So, you know, we all have our comfort zone, and walking out of that comfort zone is very hard. And I know the first time I ever asked anybody for a donation, I thought my heart was coming through my throat, out into the yard, and I was going to die right there. And this was actually a friend I was talking to. So, and it was a heartstring organization. So for me, the money probably would have been a given, but asking for it was so hard. But, and now I'm working with an organization that you say the words and you can see people's toenails start to curl. And you're just like, why? You know, hey, this is life, you know? So I think my age just kind of cut off the, I don't care. I'm going to ask. You give me $2,
Yeah.
I'll take it, you know, 50 cents, all right.
We got some great stuff going on in the chat box. Thank you so much, Wendy. I think all of those are very real feelings. And honestly, more time on this earth has given me more time to just try to get more comfortable with it. So I appreciate, like, you sharing what your experience has been like. And yeah, my heart still be out on the front line. But I'm working on it. So thank you. I know, Trevor, you unmuted. And then we also have some comments in the comment box. So I'm gonna let Chloe kind of manage that part. Trevor, did you still want to say anything about your experience real quick?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Me and Deborah were in a room together, and we had somebody else, the IDE 73, but we can hear that person. But we really kind of had like a kind of heart to heart, just understanding personal perspectives of growing into fundraising, asking. She spoke very much. She seems like she's very confident. Maybe I don't know. I mean, like maybe I feel like from her perspective, she knows everything. And sometimes you might just be a little nervous and can be a little bit just like I said, and like I brought up the 2 videos that we were supposed to get y'all suggested us to watch, the uncertainty and vulnerability. And it just seemed like there was just sometimes she just uncertain, and you gotta know, and that's just a test of your courage. But overall, I believe I enjoyed it. Me and her had a good conversation.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the vulnerability piece was a real big key for me. I also love Brene Brown, but that's the strength. There's strength in being vulnerable. And I believe that's how we get to connect with folks. So I love it. Thank you so much. So I see that Catherine posted in the chat box to everybody. So if y'all want to read that, cool. I won't loud them out. And I'll just go ahead on and let us move on. All right. Veronica, I think we got you on deck right now.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Veronica.
Hello, hello.
Oh yeah, Deborah, you went to the GIVE conference, right?
It's good to see you
the
again, Reverend Deborah.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you all sharing and engaging those questions. Those are questions that we pretty typically use to start off a gift in-person training. And one of the reasons is that before we can get really comfortable with asking other people for money, it's so vitally important for us to have some understanding about our own relationship with money. And so if you think about some of our anxieties and apprehensions around asking for money, a lot of those are really tied to the baggage that we associate it with it ourselves. So in follow-up, one of the things that we're going to provide to you all is an article from the Grassroots Fundraising Journal called Mapping Our Experiences, a training exercise. And it's essentially the exercise that you all just participated in. There are a couple of different ways that you can facilitate it, but we're going to be sending that article out to you all in the hopes that you might invite your organizations, your community groups, whoever it is you're organizing with into this same conversation. So one of the things that I want to talk about next is the focus on grassroots fundraising. Oftentimes when we talk about fundraising to sustain our organizing work or our community-based work, folks are real quick to think about foundations and grants as a source of money to support our movement building. But GIFT very specifically emphasizes the importance of focusing on individual donors. And because of that, it's really important that we learn how to make the ask, how to ask folks to donate to support our work and our movement building. So one of the first reasons that we shift to looking at individual donors is because there's literally just more resources available when we look at individual donors. Individual donors collectively give more and have more to give. The data that you see in this slide is from an organization that puts out an annual report. The organization is called Giving USA. And even though they put out this report annually, the number of the ways that charitable contributions in the United States actually shake out are really consistent across the years. So what you see here is that in 2016, we saw almost $4 billion in charitable giving in the United States. And when we look at how that money is split up in terms of who's giving that money, here's what we see. In 2016, just a little over 70% of that $400 billion or $280 billion came from individual donors, right? And so then the next biggest category is foundations there at 15% or $59 billion. Then bequests coming in third at 8% or $31 billion, and corporations at 5% or $20 billion. Now, this is really significant because, again, first of all, what we see is that when we focus our fundraising efforts on individuals, we literally have access to a greater slice of the pie, right? And so already we see that foundations are not necessarily going to be our biggest sources of support. One of the other things that I want to point out, for those of you who are unfamiliar with bequests, bequests basically speak to a person's estate. So once somebody passes, whatever it is that they leave on, that they leave behind. And so I always like to point out, I don't mean to sound too flippant, but what we're seeing here, again, these trends are consistent across years. And what we see is that dead folks who have passed on, are consistently giving away more than even corporations year after year. And one of the ways that we explain that is we can think about corporations' motivation for giving, right? It's rarely because they're actually trying to help us create true change. Oftentimes corporations are motivated by actually trying to show us how responsible they are. And so a lot of those monies actually come out of their ad campaign budgets. So again, we're really kind of starting to see why it's so vital for us to focus on individuals. And what we can talk about beyond just literally the fact that focusing on individuals gives us access to more people, more potential donors and dollars, is the fact that by focusing on individual donors, we're also working to build our base of support, right? So the same people who are donating to support our work are the same people who are going to literally help us build out our base in just numbers of bodies, numbers of people that support what it is we're doing. What you see here on this slide is a breakdown of the fact that basically what we know is that the less money that people have generally, the more of it they give away. This chart here to the left is showing you different income levels. And then what you see to the right, the graph there is showing you the percentage that folks at that income level gave of their income over this time period that's charted. And so we see that consistently households that make $25,000 or less a year are giving away 16% of that household income. Well, between the years of 2006 to 2012, households that were bringing in $200,000 or more a year actually scaled back on their giving during that time period. And given that during that time period, we were experiencing one of my lifetime's greatest financial crisis, I think it's really poignant to recognize that at a time when there is most need, the folks who are being most responsive to that are our people, our base, right? Our donors there at the bottom of this donor pyramid. So we can think about the financial reasons for focusing on individual donors. Literally, individual donors are going to be more loyal to us generally. As long as they support the work that we're doing and we're doing the right work, they're going to keep their support coming and they're going to stay engaged. We can also talk about political reasons. I don't know how many of you are familiar with grant funding, for example. A lot of times when you're applying for grant money, they'll include a statement that says that they don't support any type of advocacy or lobbying work. I actually personally happen to believe that advocacy is one of the most important strategies that we can use in movement building to lobby for our causes. And when we're working with individual donors, we don't have to deal with those kinds of restrictions on our strategies. All right, so there are a lot of reasons that we're going to emphasize working with individual donors above and beyond other types of fundraising. Now, if we zoom back out, kind of really far out, and we think about movement building, holistic movement building, and thinking about kind of a mass movement of the people, by the people, and for the people, what we're really talking about needing to do is shift away from the way that we think about fundraising altogether. And so this chart, you'll see the source cited there, but actually comes from a resource that we refer to in our work and talks about what we're trying to do at GIFT to really shifting the way that we look at our grassroots fundraising in our movement building. And we're looking to impact individual people when we talk about fundraising and inviting individual people in to explore their relationship with money in the hopes that at some point we get around this circle here to the point of societal change. And so that ideally we begin to see an actual shift in the way that we approach fundraising. And this ties into the videos that we invited you all to watch before the webinar, the videos particularly on vulnerability. And so what we're talking about is moving to a time and a place where we don't necessarily see funding and resources for our movement building as a scarce resource. But in fact, we actually move to a place of believing that we have access to all the resources that we need. And we're no longer going to ask for those resources. We're going to come back into space and we're going to talk about what we will do with our resources. No longer asking for money or fundraising, but really beginning to reclaim the resources and the assets that already belong to us. And so one of the other pieces that we wanted to invite you all to engage with is this video. You'll see the link at the bottom of your screen. And we're going to ask you all, if you're able to watch the video right now, it's a very short clip, it's less than 4 minutes. We're going to ask you to make sure that your computers are on mute. And we're going to invite you to go ahead and just take a few minutes to watch this video. And then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the connection to fundraising, grassroots fundraising. So again, we're going to take about 4 minutes right now and invite you all to go ahead and follow this link here and watch this video called Weaving the Keswachaka Bridge. And it does have captions.
And the link is also posted in the chat box. So you can click on that link and it should pull up the video.
Okay. I'm thinking that that's about enough time if you chose to watch the video now. So one of the reasons that we introduced this video is to really illustrate very clearly the trajectory that we're on in shifting from grassroots fundraising to this idea of resource mobilization. And the video illustrates this really well because you really see that they're moving beyond just literally a demand for cash, and they're using natural resources along with a history, a legacy of cultural practices and traditions to meet the needs of these communities. And so that's what we're trying to illustrate through this video. But also some key components about fundraising and the way that we think about fundraising. We want to really kind of emphasize the fact that successful fundraising is all about relationships. And you see that in this video. You see the fact that everybody had a role, from the babies that were dancing and supporting the festival, to the folks that were actually weaving the grass, the people that were preparing the food and playing the music. So you see that there was a role for everybody to get involved and to contribute. And then it's also really important to remember that marginalized communities have entire legacies of what we today call grassroots fundraising. We know how to do this stuff. We've been doing this stuff to sustain ourselves, our lives, our communities for many, many, many years. And so it's important for us to always remember that that is in our legacy. And that finally, when we talk about really the essence of grassroots fundraising for movement building, we're really talking about prioritizing communities' ownership, ownership by people who are the most impacted, and participation and engagement and leadership from people who are most directly impacted by the issues. So again, we share this video with you all to kind of think bigger picture about what we're aiming for when we talk about the importance of grassroots fundraising in our movement building. With that, I'll turn it over to you all and ask if you have any questions at this point before we move on to our next section. And again, feel free to use the chat box. Chloe's keeping an eye on those. And let us know what you're thinking if you have any questions right now.
I guess I got a common question.
Go ahead.
Okay. That whole, I mean, in the video, the whole community has something they all value. I guess the bridge was something that bridged communities together where, that's where all economic development can really take place when it comes to trade between those communities. So like me prospectively, how like in my community, will I have to look for people who are kind of looking for the same things that I'm looking for to bridge the gaps? That's it.
Veronica, did you want to say something? I thought that was very strong. Yes, look for the people to bridge the gap. Boo. Yes, metaphors. I love that. People who are all working towards a common goal. I thought that was really dope. Veronica, were you going to say something?
That's key, Trevor. I think we're talking about a community that's come together and started by identifying shared needs, right? The reason that everybody is involved in contributing is because everybody recognizes the value of this bridge to both communities, connecting both of these communities. So yeah, absolutely. I think you hit it, you're right on the money with that. Pun intended. It's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay.
So I do have a question here from Magali. When you say fundraising is about relationship and collaboration, what is the strategy that GIF uses to strategize relationships? Or I guess for relationships and collaborations.
I'll give you just kind of the short and easy answer. That's part of the planning that I think we recommend for any organization, is to sit down and be really intentional about planning out how you're going to identify the relationships that are most important to you and how you're going to plan to actually nurture and build those relationships. And for us, because we are so focused on grassroots fundraising as movement building, we start off with the folks closest to us. So for example, after I had gone through the gift program and graduated, they almost immediately swung back around and asked me for a donation, invited me to help support other folks like myself in receiving gift training. And then, they continued to nurture their relationship with me, so that over the course of time, I eventually got invited back. I was invited to participate on a finance advisory committee to the board after I became a donor. Several years after that, I was invited to come back and actually help facilitate a gift training. 10 plus years later, here I am, a staff member and a dedicated monthly donor at that. So it's really, I think when we talk about grassroots fundraising and really strategizing around your relationships, think about starting where your movement building is. Who are the folks that you already know support the movement building and the organizing work that you're doing? That's about starting with the relationship, right? I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Maya. That's great questions. I think you all are definitely kind of kind of with us in the ideas that we were hoping to explore during this webinar.
Yeah, thank y'all so much. And thank you, Veronica. So I'm going to talk to us a little bit more about what Veronica brought up about creating a fundraising plan. And I just want to let y'all know that we're using development, community engagement, and fundraising as interchangeable words. We're just talking about fundraising here. You need a fundraising plan for a couple of reasons. First, you want to know where to focus. Like we just talked about, assessing the relationships that we have, assessing the relationships that we need, and things like that. It also keeps you proactive instead of reactive. So if you have a plan, when big things come up, you know that you can revert back to that plan and not feel anxiety about scrambling for money and resources. And also, you'll raise more money if you take the time to carry out effective events and initiatives. So always having something to go back to and a time period to do those things will really, one, build your base, and have folks have faith in your organization and in your work. And then things are more likely to manifest when you write them down. Like, it's a way to claim your abundance and then go out and get it. So these steps for this planning cycle they start when you have already, if like you're in a big organization, so let's say your board of directors and your ED have come together and started a budget. If you don't have a big organization, you and a couple of folks, you'll look at what resources you have, and you have a budget, and you start a fundraising plan. You implement that plan, then you execute that plan. As you're executing that plan, you're learning, you're taking notes, you're making sure you're noticing what's going on as you're actually living out that plan. Then you evaluate when you figure out who's on your fundraising team. And it is really beneficial to have not just one person. You can evaluate what worked and see how you can improve, so that the next time you have to plan that next cycle, you can put those things into action. And then Britney, on this next slide, is going to talk to y'all a little bit of the questions to explore when you're coming up with your fundraising plan.
Yeah. Thank you. So I know a lot of folks, we read through the surveys that you all filled out when you originally submitted it, if you still remember that. And a lot of folks were asking questions about, like, what are strategies? How do we do this? I'm interested in, like, trying to recruit more donors, all of those things. And so these are just some of the questions as far as getting ready to start that plan, to start that planning process, and get some of those questions answered. Going back to what Veronica said earlier, just want to make sure that you all know that we will be providing different activities and other resources to help you with this plan. We're going to go through some of these rather quickly. So I just want to let y'all know that we will have, like, other activities that you can take to your board or your crew, whoever is in your, in your group, and y'all can work through these plans and stuff like that. And this recording will also be posted online. All right, so the first big question is, what are your fundraising goals? A lot of us were like, oh, I just want money. But the more intentional we can be about where we want to be, and we can set that goal, the better we can track our progress and get into that place of evaluation and learning, like Maya was talking about. A cool way that I like to do goals, I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard of this before, is SMART goals. So for me, thinking about fundraising, how specific can we get? What is our target number? Is our target number 100,000 by 2019? Cool. Is it measurable? How much of that money do we want to raise every month? Is it $10,000 every month? Getting really specific with your crew, your people, even just yourself, of where you want to be in the next couple months. Is it also attainable? How big is our base? How big is the area that I live in? Do we live in a small town? And so how are we going to access these donors and stuff like that? I think is a great way to, really get specific and get really grounded in your goals, and relevant. So who are we seeking out to support us? Are we going to the NRA to support LGBTQ work? Probably not. So just think about that. That gets into, like, our audience. So who is our audience? Who are our people? And a lot of times it helps visualize places where we can go to try to make these people into donors, or our prospects, right? People who we know that can give us money or willing to support us. And so I think that's just a cool way of thinking about it. Donors, prospects, all in that same kind of synonym kind of way, I believe. That's just how I look at it. You can go to the next slide, Veronica. All right, cool. So this gets into a little bit more of the weeds about donor engagement. Again, that's just a fancy word of how do we interact with people who are our donors, and how do our donors interact with us financially? So in this ladder here, it's a little bit about at what level are they interacting with us? Are they lifelong donors? Are they new donors that we're trying to get, going back to that planning phase? Are there monthly donors that we're trying to get? Are we trying to build retention? Do we want to upgrade those donors to giving from $10 to $20 a month? These are all the different ways that you can look at building out your plan, and how to engage certain folks in your area and your donor base. And I'm going to let Maya kind of help me out here a little bit more with this edge.
Right. I know that for a lot of y'all, and I want to be mindful of that, you don't have big fundraising teams that can do the grant writing and also have dinners with wealthy donors and also do the individual smaller impulse donors. And one strategy that I want to offer is that a way to focus on folks with wealth and individual donors with not as much money is to maybe come up with a matching program. So let's say you have a sit down with one of your wealthier donors and say, if I raise $200 from a couple of people, can you match that $200? That way you're still engaging a diverse donor base, and you're able to focus on both things with kind of one strategy. I want to touch again on some strategies that y'all could use depending on what donor level that they're at. So crowdsourcing is a really good one for entry-level donors. So is a house party. A house party, in turn, could also be really great for your current donors. You could throw a members-only party and start gaining donors that way. A business sponsorship, seeing what local businesses are in your area and asking them to give 5% of their proceeds for a weekend could, one, make them feel really excited about getting engaged in the work, and you can make a bunch of money. And then for a higher, for major donors, fundraising galas are fun, and they like to feel important and special, but also don't forget that folks that don't have a bunch of money want the opportunity to dress up and spend some money. So giving people the opportunity to engage in different levels is really empowering and exciting for folks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Obviously, you can see why she's our donor and engagement fellow. So here, this slide just gives us a little bit better base knowledge about who our best prospects are. And so here we have are they ABC compatible? Do they have the ability to donate? And this isn't how much money they have, but more, or not what level they're going to give at, but do they have the ability right now to donate? And the next part is B. Do they believe in our cause? Are they interested in our organization? Do they know about our organization? These are questions that we can be asking ourselves while we're in this process of planning. And also contacts. So we can say, yeah, I go to church every Sunday and there's 500 people in there, but do we actually know them personally? Do we have their contact information? Do we have an email? Soliciting major donors, that can come with a lot, it's nice to actually know those people and have a personal touch with them. So those are just some of the things that we want to be thinking about. Veronica, can you help me out with the ability part? I know you had something super dope about that part and I didn't want to miss it. Oh, still on mute.
Oh,
okay.
Chloe,
can you unmute Veronica, please? You should be able to unmute yourself.
I could add that.
Okay, yeah.
the ability, when you're assessing someone's ability, this isn't a time for you to be able to cop out of the situation. You're not going to go in and say, that person looks like they don't want to donate because they look mean. That's not the time. When you're assessing someone's ability, you're thinking about them. Do you see them sharing GoFundMes? Do you see them at different events? How do you see them engaging? And do they seem like they care about social justice work? Do you see them, you know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure you're focusing on who the person is and not judging how much money they have, how easy it may be to ask them for something, and things like that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Awesome. Veronica's giving you the thumb up. I think we got that one. All right. And can we go to the next slide? Okay, so I think the one about that was like talking a little bit more about strategies, but this next one is about talking about what strategies may be most effective in sealing the deal with new donors and increasing your donations amounts. So just a quick thing, personal face-to-face asking is the most effective way. How personal can we be? Can we invite them to that house party? How engaging are we if we are tabling at an event, and so from here we can see at least 1 out of 4 people are going to say yes with a personal face-to-face ask. And with something like, say, if we're doing phone banking, if we're doing cold calls, 1 out of 20 people will say yes. So this is just a cool thing to keep in your head about what your goal is at the end of this year or whatever, and what are strategies that are going to push you to that goal. So how many times do we want to do phone banking? How many times do we want to have special events? How much money do we want to spend doing direct mailers? So what's our return on investment? That's how I like to look at it. If we're going to use our resources and our time to invest in these different strategies, what are the best ones that are going to give us the most bang for our buck, I guess, which sounds super cheesy on a fundraising webinar, but it works. All right, we can go to the next slide, Veronica. Okay, cool. So now we're at the place where we're like 1 out of 4 people are going to say yes if I go up and talk to them, right? But that doesn't mean all the time that they're going to give us 100% of what we ask for. And so that's kind of what this slide is talking about. So if they do say yes in a face-to-face ask, the majority of the time they're going to give you 50% less than what you ask for. So those are 2 different dynamics to think about. So how are we doing the ask, and what strategy is most likely going to be like, okay, we're going to get 50% of our donors here, like 50% of our ask here, which ramps it up, right? Like, how many more people do we need to ask to get to our goal if we know that about 50% of what we already asked for is what we're going to get? So we're starting at halfway there. Same goes with phone calls, personal letters, phone banking, a lot of stuff like that. I want to open it up for Veronica and Maya again, just to kind of let me know if there's something else that they wanted to add.
I just want to point out that face-to-face may seem intimidating, right? But there are a variety of ways you can get a one-on-one time with folks. You don't always have to have a sit down with people. You could be tabling an event and someone comes up and you have that time to talk to them and get that ask in. Or even like getting people together in smaller groups. Some folks do feel more open, not when they're like staring at someone in the eyes, but when they're with like 2 or 3 other people and they have a chance to tap in and tap out. Kind of learning what accessibility looks like for communication for folks is a good way to understand how you can best do face-to-face solicitation based on who you want to do it with.
Cool. That is perfect. Veronica's good to go. Cool. Can we go to the next slide? I believe we have an example coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. There you go.
So let's run through some stuff that we've learned. We want to do a little bit of an example. So let's say we want to raise $1,200 to go to Gifts Money for Our Movement conference. Next slide, please. So in order to do that, we could ask 1 or 2 people for $600 to get $1,200. But what makes more sense and what you want to put in your fundraising plan is figuring out how you're going to diversify your source of money. So instead of asking a couple of people, maybe, or doing 60, okay, anyway, I was about to get too specific, but anyway, you could sell 10 t-shirts for $25 or have a house party with a cover of $5 and expect about 20 to 25 people to show up. And then you're knocking off what things you want to raise, the amount of money you want to raise based on the events you're going to do. Prospects in this chart is basically signifying to you that you're always going to ask more people for money than who's going to say yes to get to your goal. So let's say we want 15 donations of $10. I would ask, and I would do that through a mail appeal. A mail appeal is basically writing a letter and sending it out to folks and asking them for money. So you'll have a little donation envelope in there. I would probably send out 150 to 200 mail appeals to get that 15 donations to get to 150, if that makes sense for folks. And then if y'all have questions about prospects and like some strategies to diversify your sources of money, we can talk about that soon. And Veronica, you can go to the next slide. So some tips for successful fundraising is, the first one is just asking. Like I was talking about earlier, I have personal experience with feeling vulnerable and afraid to ask for things just so I don't seem like I'm not in control over what's going on. But to remember that we as a collective are supposed to be funding this work is really a great way to stay grounded and calm and brave in asking for what you need for you and your people. Then set a goal. And I would suggest setting a goal with somebody, because I think sometimes we tend to dream too big, or it's nice to have someone that says, hey, actually, you could do bigger than that. You have the capacity. The next tip is to invite many people to give. Again, diversify your sources. The more you ask, the more yes answers you'll get. Yes, you're definitely going to get no's, but the yeses kind of fuel that asking. And then believe in your cause. Your belief has to be stronger than your fear. So to me, that means make sure that you're doing work and advocating for work that hits you in your heart, that really makes you feel empowered to do this work. And then be sure to thank everyone who gives. What we like to do here is send thank you notes, handwritten thank you notes. If you see someone on the street that you know gave, tell them thank you in person. It makes folks feel good. If you know someone personally that gave, send them their favorite little candy or something. Really make sure to maintain those relationships. And we were talking about the main folks that give are people that don't really have all of that money to give. So letting them know that you see them and you appreciate that labor is really important. So I just want to open it up for questions about strategies, about successful tips to be successful and things like that. Does anybody have anything? I see some things are coming up in the chat that I could read really quickly. Or someone else could read.
Yeah, Maya, if you want to go ahead, that's cool too.
Yeah,
The
first question is actually from right after Veronica's piece from Leticia, and that's about what is the strategy for people without relationships. We talked about relationships being really key. So what happens when you don't have many relationships yet?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's no way to get around that. When we approach grassroots fundraising as organizing, it's like saying, what happens if you're organizing and you don't have people? Then we got to figure out why it is that what we're organizing isn't speaking to the people. So you got to think about relationships. And one of the tools that we're going to share with you all is a tool called Who Do I Know? And it's a worksheet that just helps us think through who are our relations. A lot of times when we add on the layer of fundraising, people instantly think they don't know anyone. When I ask people to tell me who are 10 people that you can ask for $5, all of a sudden nobody's got any friends. So we're going to share a worksheet with you all that's going to help you just start to think through your different communities, different spaces where you're engaged, to help you identify your starting relationships. And these relationships don't even have to be relationships that have money from the get-go. These could be people that lead you to the next round of relationships. They share their relationships with you. And if that round of relationships still doesn't have any money, you just keep building and digging into those relationships as long as people are willing to share, and until you find the people that are willing and able to show up for your cause. So there is no easy answer. It's just like organizing in that way, right? If you're not finding your people, you need to explore what your messaging is and what your work is, and whether or not your work is in alignment with the needs that people have. So in that way, grassroots fundraising is also just really literally a great check on your relevance. The people will show up to support your work if the work that you're doing is work that the people need and want. I hope that's helpful. But we'll have some resources that we'll provide for you all, as well as the conversation map for making the ask. I see a question in the chat box about what's the structure, what's the form of actually making an ask. We're going to share another tool with you all that is literally just a conversation map. And it directs you literally, how do you start the conversation to how do you get to the end of the conversation where you're asking for money. So you'll have that to look at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Veronica, if you don't mind putting up our emails on the slide here. So out of respect for everybody's time, I understand that it's supposed to end at 8 o'clock, and it is now 8:02. So I just want to make sure that everybody has our email information, or that you can at least view it here. We are going to stay on and answer a few more questions. We definitely have some great ones in the chat box, but I know that everyone may not have time. So we're going to continue recording and answering questions, and we're also going to be available for follow-up. So these are emails here. You'll also receive our email addresses in the follow-up email as well. If you registered for this, you'll get the documents, you'll get our contact information, and you'll also get a link to the recording, and it will live on our website. I also want to say that we do have a follow-up survey, so if you could please let us know a little bit about what you learned, things that could be improved, some things that we might want to touch on for our next webinar. That would be super, super awesome. I greatly appreciate it. And we do too, so we can bring you another webinar that works for you, that meets your needs. Doing it for the grassroots, y'all. So yeah, thank you all so much. If you do have to get off, I totally understand. You can also send your questions directly to one of us via email as well. So just want to put that out there. All right, so Chloe, can you queue up our next question?
Yes. So Magali is asked the next question. This is the 4 most important strategies of fundraising in your fundraising plan. It's kind of a compound question, and how you form your team and who is in it. Veronica, you are mute.
Can you all hear me okay?
There you go. Yeah.
Perfect. So I think if I heard correctly, it's the four most important strategies in my own fundraising plan. And I would say, actually, first and foremost, in my fundraising plan, my focus is really about bringing in new donors. And the strategy that I use is just supporting folks wherever I can and however I can around fundraising. So I've always got articles from the journal that are at hand. I've always got our network of contacts that I'm prepared to refer folks to. So I would say that for me, probably the most important fundraising strategy that I have, both myself personally and for all of the groups that I help fundraise for, is that I'm always ready with an ask, with information and an ask. And that's what I would suggest to you all, that you always have a very clear sense of a direct fundraising ask, that you're always prepared to support that ask. And then that you always have a way to support it on you. And so again, for me, I have a lot of tools and resources, whether it's other relationships or the publication that we put out, the Grassroots Fundraising Journal. For me, it's about basically helping to show folks that I offer value to a relationship. And that's where the relationship starts. Like organizing, all of my fundraising relationships pretty consistently develop into personal relationships as well, right? And that's part of the secret of organizing. And I didn't, what was the second part of the question, Claire?
How you form your team and who is in it.
How we form our teams. For GIFT, it's about, again, I think I talked a little bit about how I was recruited to become increasingly engaged with GIFT. And so at GIFT, and again, I think with other community projects that I work with, we're really looking to volunteers. We're recruiting volunteer fundraisers from folks that already believe in our issue or our cause, folks that are already committed. For GIFT, that looks like folks who are already doing fundraising work and know how difficult it is, know how challenging it is. And so those are the very folks that we invite into our fundraising programs, because they can talk firsthand about how our programming benefits them. And they're most able to make that direct connection to other folks who would support our work. So the people that you're gonna get to help you do your fundraising team is gonna consist of folks, much like that slide that we showed about ABC prospecting, are gonna be folks that meet those ABC criteria. Folks that are already involved and engaged and are looking for ways to develop their own relationship deeper with you and your organization. I think that's the other important thing to keep in mind when you're asking folks both to help you fundraise and to donate to your work, is a lot of times we have a tendency to put our own baggage on people. And you have to remember that folks are coming to you because they want engagement. They're asking for ways to become more involved with the work that you're doing. One of the things that we always say in trainings with folks is that most people will talk about how good it feels to give. And most people also have not so great feelings associated with asking for money. But the only way that you get to that place of helping people have that great experience of giving money is when you're able to actually embrace the vulnerability of making that ask. So without the person who's able to embrace that vulnerability and push themselves to the ask, those of us who like the feeling of giving and contributing to something bigger than us never have that opportunity. So it's just a way to think about that a little bit differently.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to add something to those questions there. So one thing that we do internally, and it's kind of getting to your deal about engaging volunteers and people who are telling your story, is practice. If we have a meeting before we're going to an event, or if we have a staff meeting, if you have anybody in your team that's going to support like you in an ask, we practice going back and forth, like talk about, and it's very individualized. So like, talk with your partner, do an elevator pitch. So you get in the elevator with someone, you got a couple floors to go up to talk about your work, and then make an ask. And so we actively do that when we bring it up. And so we get in the habit of figuring out what our pitch is, what our story is. We also practice writing about our work. These are also cool strategies. Like we do blog posts, and then we put an ask at the end. We have a link to, hey, do you have $5 right now to donate to our cause? So a lot of that for us is like practice with storytelling, and making sure that like our passion is being told to other people about why we do the work, not just the scripted thing that everybody else says. And that usually carries very well with building relationships with folks. Like I can usually tell when somebody's being pretty honest with me, or feeling very authentic in conversation. So I think that's just really important to just kind of practice it and find out what your thing is. The other thing we do outside of practicing it in-house we make sure we do it outhouse. So every event that we have, we make an ask. We know we have to make an ask. We get prepared to make an ask. We're like, okay, we're going to have a forum tonight. Who's going to make the ask? We designate who that person is, and then they make the ask, and then we go and do, other things like that. So making sure to designate who those people are, to give them time to prep, and they can probably work with a practice partner on how to work on that as well. But making sure to designate that person, and then making sure to follow through and do it. And the more you do it, the better we are. So, yeah. I will say, just for a quick time check, it's 8:10. We're probably going to stay on for another 10 minutes, and we'll still be able to follow up via email to some of these questions. Chloe, can you queue us up on the next one?
Yeah, Magali had a few other questions, but I want to skip to Emily just to make sure that we get Emily's questions answered too, and it relates to what you were just talking about with blog posts. So Emily asked, any comments or suggestions on how to effectively use media and press and fundraising?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Maya, did you want to comment on that? I know Veronica and I have been talking for a little while.
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind is making sure you are getting your story out there, and then combining that with an ask. One thing that I really like that I see when I'm on social media or something is just seeing a short 2-minute video or something, and it doesn't even have to be highly produced, of someone either affected by the work or engaged in the work, and then just showing us how the work is affecting folks is really helpful. And then you connect that with, can you donate type thing. I think that's it. I think that's kind of what I would use. We also, like, just on a very basic level, whenever we are having events or anything like that, we use social media and make sure to connect with people through social media. That often allows folks that are connected to our work that we may not know, those folks can invite their friends, and now you're in a pool of diverse donors, potential donors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing that I've thought about is we invest money in doing Facebook ads, right? So if your base isn't as big, if you do a promoted post, which usually isn't that much, you can get a lot more people knowing about your event or your party or your forum or stuff like that, so you can get more people out, and that gives you more prospects. So that's another way that we use media to try to get people out and increase our donors, our new donors that way.
Also, I just want to add that emails are currency. Getting as many emails as possible when you're doing events and connecting people and getting likes on your Facebook page or something is another way that you can kind of gauge and get your fundraising plan together, because now you're seeing how many people you have access to.
Word. Veronica, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, can you all hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I would recommend if you are considering using media as a strategy is to ensure that you do some work so that you have a landing spot for folks that are going to look for more information. And specifically when we're talking about fundraising, ideally what we say is you want to have a donate button or some sort of link at every page, on your social media pages, on your website, to ensure that if you're actually using those strategies to help drive folks to you, more often than not, folks are going to look for you online. And so you want to make sure that you have a way to receive them when they come looking for you to make that contact. At minimum, most ideally, you're going to have a way to capture their information. So an invitation to sign up for a regular e-newsletter, for example, and also a donate button that's accessible, that links to a way to donate that folks can access really quickly. There's a lot of data and research that shows that increasingly folks are wanting to donate online. And so you want to be prepared and actually give them an easy and accessible way to do that.
All right. I think we have time for one more.
Okay. Magali had another question. I think it's already answered. What is the structure that a successful face-to-face meeting should have? Veronica, do you think that tool that you're sharing is going to answer that question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So that tool will be available for folks to reference after the webinar. And the other one was, could you share with us ways to thank donors? Brittany mentioned handwritten thank you notes and quarterly letters, holiday cards. What are other ways to thank donors?
Parties. Throw them
Yeah.
a thank you party. You can get them, you can knock it out with just one event and get, you know, however many donors you've gotten that year or in a 6-month period type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We actually are currently at Gift in the middle of a thank bank. And so it's basically just a phone bank. And what we're doing is we're calling out to donors who gave during our last campaign just to say, hey, and thanks so much. And we love you. And is there anything you want to say to us while you have us on the phone? So that can get folks excited too. I think sometimes folks answer the phone for us when we're doing our thank banks and they're expecting to be asked. And so it's kind of fun just to say, no, we're actually just calling to thank you. And we've actually had some really cool conversations between our volunteer callers and our donors during that calling.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool.
There's one more question if there's time. Brittany, were you going to say something else?
I actually forgot my thought, so it's cool.
Magali had one more question, and I wanted to share this because her question is, what kind of strategies can I use to attract monthly donors and to keep them engaged? And Magali is one of your monthly donors. I feel like you have very effectively, you and Becky have really effectively kept me engaged. And so, I mean, I feel like y'all have a lot to offer in response to this question already. And the things that have really made a difference for me is the little postcards with handwritten notes. And, you know, when my card lapsed or my donation expired, like following up with me and not just following up with me in a transactional way, but asking me how I'm doing and, you know, wanting to hear about my life and telling me about your life and just, you know, it's building that relationship and really feeling connected to y'all, even though I'm not able to be there with you in community anymore. So I just wanted to share that as being a really great way that's been keeping me engaged and making me feel part of the movement still.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Chloe. I remember one more thing, and this kind of gets to the monthly donors thing. I like that we kind of do targeted emails too. So even if it's not a specific individual one, we're a regional organization. So if we're doing work in someone's area or someone's town, we'll shoot our donors in that area a thank you and let them know where their money like specifically is going to support, right? So we're doing a self-defense clinic in Northern Alabama. Anybody that's in that area that we work with, we like to shoot them a message and just be like, this is the work that you're supporting. Thank you. Also, if you would like to connect with them, they're open to having you show up, all that kind of stuff, just to like really engage them in the work. Even if, you know, we're far away, we can still engage them in whatever work we're doing. So, and that's been really cool. So yeah, anybody else want to add anything?
I think for folks that don't already have a solid monthly giving program, one way to do that is to make it fun by naming your program, like so that people feel a part of your movement. They feel like they're in their own little Q club, creating your own like Facebook group for those members where they're able to interact and you're able to interact with them. Like Brittany was saying, since we're regional, when we're in different spaces, we try to say, hey, we're in Greenville today. Let's get a drink or let's have a little get together and talk about what type of work you want to see us doing or just talk in general. Those types of personal touches and making folks feel like they're a part of a community can really go a long way. Oh, and giving them a thing, giving them a monthly, every time they send their money, you give them a clip of what y'all were doing this month, or just even a selfie of y'all in the office. Like, thanks so much. that's a good way to make folks feel like they are following the work.
Absolutely. Any other ideas?
I think that was great. I think you all totally covered it. I definitely think that what Britney was talking about was something that in the lingo we call segmentation. And that's literally just about kind of categorizing your existing donors and working with those categories with some degree of specificity. So instead of, for example, sending an email to all of your donors, maybe in this case, you're going to send, because you want to recruit new monthly donors, you're going to send an email to all of your donors who made at least one donation last year. And so because you know you already have some depth of relationship with them, it makes sense to approach them and ask them to kind of escalate their giving, to make a bigger commitment to become a monthly donor. So I think that segmentation, or finding ways to kind of make your donor pool smaller so that you can work with them and be more specific in your relationship building with them, that I think that that's always going to help you deepen that relationship and kind of deepen your donors' engagement with your work.
Okay, thank you. I was like, I didn't even know I knew that. I'm smart, you know. Thank you. I wanted to see if there's any more questions. We're getting ready to wrap up right now. Any other quick things that popped up, Chloe? We're good? Okay. Rev is like, nah, we're good. All right. So that being said, thank y'all so much. Like, we still have people hanging on that made it to 8:21 tonight. So thank you so, so much. Again, we do have a survey. If you could please fill that out. Thank us. Thank you for filling that out in advance. And we'll be sending out all the documents and everything like that. So yeah, thank y'all. And y'all have a great night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.